Thank you for joining us today for Look Before You Speak, and we have a very special guest on today. This program focuses on talking about and learning about art and having a different appreciation about the visual arts. Oftentimes commercial television has an image, a visual image for less than certainly less than 2 seconds. You see a visual image, and I believe it's changed the way in which we've looked at and appreciate art. And the second aspect of this program, which is important, is not only looking at a lot of the art that's around Missoula and the community, but gaining an appreciation of the quality and caliber of art that exists here in this community. So the goal is twofold. We look at images, we have them up on the screen for a long time, and we talk about them. Today we have a very special guest, Patricia Thorton, who works at Zootown Arts Center, Community Center, and they're doing some really exciting things over there. And Patricia actually manages the gallery as well as the educational programming that occurs at the Arts Center, which is on the north side. And if none of you have been to, if you haven't been to the gallery on the north side, please take it in. And just wonderful work that's being done at ZAC, and you'll quickly gain an appreciation of the stimulating environment that exists there. And Patricia, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's really nice to be here.
And you brought some images.
I did.
All right. So
yeah.
Would you like to introduce them, and we can flash them up and take a look at them?
Absolutely. I brought some images from a show that I curated. I started curating the show about 3 years ago, and I invited 6 different artists to show. And so this first image is by Sheila Miles, and the title is called What Is Under My Skirt? It's a mixed media collage piece by Sheila, and she had been showing in some of our shows. So we do a lot of group shows. I really like to focus on group shows at the ZAC Community Art Gallery. So we try to give a lot of people the opportunity to show in there. And so group shows, of course, offer that more of that, being able to show. And
Sheila lives in the Southwest right now, but she lived in Missoula for a long, long time.
She did.
Yeah. So
and
really
I see her at
a
lot of different art functions in the MAM. She's in the MAM auction and various other shows throughout Missoula. But I've seen her work primarily through the Last Best Print Fest. She'll do a print for that and a portfolio for that. And her work is just amazing to me. She's really experimental, and all the artists I invited, in most of their descriptions of themselves, the artist statements, they talk about inventiveness, exploration, the piece having a mind of its own, that kind of a different approach than what people think about that artists use.
And this piece that you brought in today, she is really known as a painter, but this is a mixed media piece. Is there paper and collage on this piece?
Yeah, the black figure is a cutout from a painting. So there are some of her paintings. I think she's just painting paper and painting canvases and then cutting them up. Some of them may be from paintings she didn't like, and some of them may be from are just from painted surfaces that she's creating to make that thing, which is a really fun process, and it is the way I work as well.
Yeah. So. It's very exciting that you brought her in, and I just think, just the caliber of art that is being showed and shared in galleries across Missoula really show the importance of art in our community. And so really glad you brought that piece in. You have another piece by her?
Yeah, this one here, and this one's an untitled piece, and this is a painting. that she sent us for our first show that we did together. And yeah, she did a whole series of these sleeping ladies, and a lot of them were ascending. You know, she'd have multiples of this woman. She's so prolific. She paints, I don't think she does anything but paint, because she, I follow her on Facebook and other social media sites, and she just constantly posts. You know, she'll do 5 or 10 paintings in a day sometimes. And this particular series with these women was, I think she did them in a week. And it was a pretty large series of women.
You can certainly see the influence of, you know, Diebenkorn and the modernist painters, and the simplified palette, and you know, there's a fearlessness about how she's composing here, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, it's. She's exploring her subconscious during the composition of these, in composing these. And
right.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think the idea about it and the title are just as important as her finished product. What she's thinking about, or you know, troubles, or something. It doesn't even have to be troubles. It could be anything she's pondering at the moment.
Yeah, she doesn't shy away from messages at all. So, yeah, you brought in. Should we look at another work?
Sure.
Yeah.
And this is Liz Dye's piece, and she has Untitled work as well. And so the name of the show that I have been trying to tour around Montana and in the Northwest, basically, is Inside Out. And so we're 6 artists who are inspired by outsider art, and like to kind of have a conversation with outsider artists in a way. And Liz, she was a new addition at the show that we had at the Zootown Arts Community Center. I am lucky enough to know Liz, and I've been through her house and I've gone through her studio, and I just think her work is amazing. And again, I saw her first piece of art in our Missoula Monster project show at the ZAC that we do with kindergarteners. Artists make artwork based on a kindergartner's piece of artwork. So that already implies, you know, outsider kind of playing with children's art is a huge outsider reference. But she made this beautiful monster that I now own. And so I invited her because she definitely has that sensibility, and we started talking about art and how we work and how similar our styles were. So this piece...
Yeah, you get the sense that, you know, she's put down a structure of scribbling and or however she's drawing this, and then is really working on it, developing the composition, the color, and you know, this, on the other hand, unlike Sheila's, is not about a particular message or idea. It's being driven by
process.
Process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that like many of us who work in this style, things come out of it when you're working. So again, it's the piece having its own life.
Yeah.
And what she was really excited by the final result, and then you can look at them and really start talking about the animation and what happens when you look at them. And it was really fun to walk through her studio, and it was just filled with those paintings. She just worked like crazy to get a bunch of them done. Yeah,
that's great. Okay, let's look at another piece here.
So I have been working. These are mine, and I've been working on a series of flags. It started probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was just listening to the news a lot, which I do off and on because it's hard to take sometimes. And I always try to think positively, and I try to come up with a positive way to use my artwork to influence some kind of, to get people to smile, basically. And a long-term smile would be better than just a short one-time smile. So I thought maybe a new flag for the United States would be good, and that's the one in the front. And I have this character, Manny Rose, who's a 3-year-old monster who is deeply connected with his inner grandmother. And he's superpowers art. So just a character I kind of play with. I just kind of scribbled him out. My husband asked me to draw a picture of the creature from the Black Lagoon. And I just said, oh, okay. And I drew this thing real quick, and we both belly laughed so hard we fell on the floor. And I just said, I got to laughing is deep inside. It's so important. So I created these flags, and I've been showing them. The one that I've kept in the show is the surrender flag, and it's also called the birds and the bees flag. So it's kind of a surrender to the birds and the bees because of just everything I've been through in life when it comes to the birds and the bees, working with children and not being able to engage and talk about that kind of thing, and as an adult, still the pressures that revolve around that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And
what are the materials here?
Canvas, and found pieces of material in some of them, and screen prints. So screen printed, thread, and canvas.
Well, very cool. That's great. This kind of has a little bit more humorous edge to it than the other artists. So I think that's really great to have, somebody who may be more of a narrative storyteller, and then somebody who's trying to get a humorous reaction, maybe someone who's, is about process and form, emotion. Mm-hmm. And you're really mixing it up in this show. It's great.
Well, the great thing that's come out of this flag series for me is now Liz Dye and I are making flags together. We found out we both twirled tall flags in high school. We both marched in the Rose Bowl parade.
Whoa!
I know, at the same year.
Oh, that's great.
I know, we didn't even know each other. And so
that's a big.
Now we're making. That's my next flag. Is my tall flag.
Oh,
so
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, let's look at another image here.
All right. Kia. So Kia Lezak, she's the director at the ZAC and a good friend of mine. She, I had no idea when I first started working there. And she has this obsessive compulsive, that's another one of these outsider art traits, she hand dyes coffee beans and rice, and this one I think was made out of rice. And she reproduces this particular series that this one is from, she reproduced album covers from her childhood. So she has a Madonna and a David Bowie and just different artists who influenced her. And she's one of those people, it's almost the opposite of me and Liz.
So this is dyed rice.
Dyed rice.
Okay.
She hand dyes all the rice.
Cool.
And then
this is a collage.
Yeah. And then the string, I don't know, the Native American string painting, I don't know if you've, I know a few people in town who do that. Mm-hmm. But she just did it just out of found materials type of a thing. Like, what can I use in my house that, I can be resourceful, and inventive. And she thought she was the first one to ever do this kind of stuff. And it cracked me up because my, Tim's aunt, my husband's aunt, actually did some of that.
Well, and I used to, of course, in grade school, use beans and hard
pasta.
Yeah, pasta and dried peas and
yes.
And work in a fashion of collage and filling in. And this relates to a really old art form. Which,
yes.
The enameling and different things that you applied in this way. And I'm thinking of enamel particularly, that was a powder that was applied and heated up. So this goes back a long time.
Yeah, it goes back a long time. And even with found, coffee grinds and things like that, I think that people have been playing with that
And
kind
so
of...
what's this image relate to? I mean,
it's oh gosh.
an album cover?
It is. It's
Okay.
The Boss.
Oh, okay.
Who's the boss?
Bruce Springsteen?
That's the guy.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. There it is. Okay. So that's
So
really
popular
cool.
culture,
Yeah.
pop,
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at another image.
And this is Lady Pajama. And Lady Pajama and I have been showing together since I first moved here about 12 years ago. And she is probably, there are a couple artists in town that when I look at their, Steve, I think, and her, are these dynamic people who are, their personality is so big. It's almost like their personality is part of their whole art experience that you have with them. And if you talk to Lady Pajama for more than 1 minute, you'll just be either cracking up or really serious. It's just something about her personality just kind of jives with her artwork. And she'll just tell you right off the cuff, I'm just an amazing artist. I'm the most amazing artist you'll ever meet, and she's super confident and just does these just really kind of automatic drawings and very experimental. It's been really fun to watch her over the years and what's happened. And my favorite is when she does these drawings on found objects. Mm-hmm. I have a couple pieces of hers on the found objects, and I just love them. But she does it all. She does it on paper and on found paper. And
Well, there's a real innocence about her work, and she takes oftentimes found objects and alters the perspective on them and does a lot of drawing and composition, which relates to a little bit to absurdity, things that are on her mind, and I think she's really a gifted artist.
yeah,
And it's the thing I was mentioning before. Missoula is a community that, yes, we have a strong university art program, and many great artists come out of that program. But there's a lot of artists who are homegrown and, might be living at the end of your street and maybe don't have the most significant degrees in the world and that don't come out of the academy, and yet they're still gifted artists. And we need to become better at appreciating and leveling the playing field of art in our lives. So.
and I'm always thrilled and a little set aback, or not set aback, but shocked when people can be so talented and they haven't been to school. Like Lady Pajama is not she hasn't been through the academic that I have. I got my BA. I know Steve has gone, who's also on the show, has his master's, and Sheila has her master's, and so a lot of us have a lot of training, and I've lived everywhere. I've been to museums all over the world. Lady Pajama is Montana. She has never seen, Paul Klee or, all these people that we've, looked at and studied, and she's never been in a museum and seen a room. She's been in museums now, but there was a time.
Sure.
So to me, it does something.
Yeah, and just as prolific as she is, she's a very driven artist. And so let's look at another work here.
And there's another Lady Pajama's work.
There's a simplicity about her approach, and this, of course, is not a found object altered, but this is she does use drawings of children or is inspired by drawings of children. And many of her drawings are childlike. So it's very nice. How large is this drawing?
It's not larger than 8.5 by 11. She sent me about 200 drawings. They were anywhere from 4 by 4 inches up to 8.5 by 11, and I put them all in one big cluster.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I could have made a much bigger cluster, but.
What do you say to people who kind of look at this and say, gee, anyone can do that?
My 2-year-old can do that.
My 2-year-old can do that. Well, how do you respond to that kind of critique?
I tell them to try it.
Yeah.
Because I think people think that it's easy to draw like a 2-year-old. I think Pablo Picasso said the best or his most loved artists are second grade, something about that young, they're just letting it all out.
Yeah.
And I think if people tried it, it's amazing. I work with I teach a lot of adults and children art, and drawing is a super difficult thing for most people. And when you try to draw anything, even recreating a child's drawing, and I've worked around some of these artists that and I hear this type of thing too with my work. That could have been, I've been hearing that all my life. And I think to myself, you just have to do what you love. You have to draw what you love. And it's all a process, and it's,
Well, right. And, not everybody's, born to be Tolstoy.
right.
Sometimes just the simplicity of a poem or a haiku is enough, and drawing is like that, very much like that. So.
And drawing is interesting to me because and working with kids, and I'm sure you know this too, some kids, they could sit down and they'll draw, they just have that memory where they can draw a vacuum, whatever you say, and they'll just draw it. And it's pretty rare, those kids, in my experience with working with kids. And most people need to have references, things to look at. It could be a photograph, it could be something off the internet now. Now the internet has made it, really easy for a lot of people to be inspired. I know a lot of artists that trace, and come out, because I'm a printmaker. Tracing is a huge thing. Reproduction onto another thing, but. So it's interesting that people will look at a drawing and say, oh, that could be blah, blah, blah. Could be, the judgment with that.
Sure.
But there's so many different ways to approach it, to approach drawing.
Yeah. Let's look at another image. You have some more images today? Oh,
yeah. There's another one, a Liz Dye's piece. It does look like a little creature, doesn't it?
That is really cool. Really cool. I love this show, and it was so great too. And then you guys usually have your openings when? On first Thursday?
Second Friday.
Second
Fridays, yeah.
Okay.
And,
well, that's great, because you guys are on the north side, and to get to Zach, you kind of have to go under the underpass, Orange Street underpass, and you're kind of above the Orange Street underpass, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right down the street from the Kettle House.
I just highly recommend, if people haven't been to Zach for a gallery opening, to take that in, and you do a really good job at the gallery there.
Thank you, and I'd like to say that if you're an artist out there and you just really want to show your work, to apply to our gallery. Because we want community, we want the new artists who want their first time ever showing.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, is that all the images we have today?
I think so.
Well, I just want to really thank you for coming on today, and it just reinforces the whole concept of the program that, art is close. It's not far away. It's not on the coast, but it's here, and it's inside of you. So take some time to look at art, appreciate art, set your judgments aside, and try to describe what it is that you see. And please join us again next week for a program of Look Before You Speak. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Steve.